And welcome to our first podcast. I'm Fergal.
I'm Joe.
And today we have Gaia on with us.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
How's it
thank you
going?
Thank you for having me.
Good.
How are you?
Good. Excited to be here.
I think we're all excited, aren't we? It's the
Yeah.
first
A little bit
time to
nervous
anything.
as well. But,
Yeah.
I think, first of all, we just want to talk about you, like how you started your journey, the Instagram page that you run as well, and how you got started and how it's all going.
Yeah, of course. So, before the page, I've always been a big fan of fashion and influenced by my family and maybe like Italian culture in general. Very big fans of like just clothing in general, and I was buying a lot of clothes like as a young person. I grew up during the rise of fast fashion and like the boom of it, and it seems so cool, so accessible. Like I love the choice, the variety, and so I was really attracted to that. I was buying lots of clothes. My wardrobe was full, and I kept on like replacing things often, and I was getting bored of clothes so quickly. And I hated that at one point because I was spending all this money, even though it seemed like it was cheap clothes. And so something has to change. And when I looked at the True Cost documentary, it opened my eyes to not only because I was aware of how it was impacting me, my spending habits, my wardrobe, but like it was such a bigger problem that I realized that most people were not aware of. So I started the IB diploma, and when it came to my second year, I had to complete CAS, so Creativity Activity Service, and have something that kind of ticked all the boxes. And I thought social media is a perfect way to kind of do some service, like reach some people and raise awareness and talk about the issues of the world, which I was becoming passionate about. So I chose Instagram because it was the easiest to use, and started making simple infographics with things I was learning, because I was learning on the journey. I wasn't an expert or anything, just researching the topic and thinking, this really needs to be put out there. It was a mix of more serious topics like human rights issues in fashion, environmental issues, but also just this consumerist attitude, how it's impacting consumers and what we can do about it. So just really just a passion project that I was doing in my free time, and slowly it grew. I think during the pandemic I had more time to work on it, and I was really consistent with it and creating lots of content. And so my audience grew. Lots of people were noticing my posts, and I think it was just a trendy topic, like sustainability in general got more attention.
Yeah, definitely over lockdown, sustainability got a massive boost. So did you start it over lockdown?
I started in November in 2019, so just before it, but I guess it just boomed when people were spending more time on their phones, and I just had more free time to work on it. Yeah,
because you mentioned earlier it boomed 4 months after, which is probably around the time that COVID kind of hit, and people started doing nothing with their days.
Yeah, I guess just for the listeners as well, like just explain what the page is called and like what it mainly focuses
definitely. It's called Sustainably, and really focuses on education and like raising awareness about the issues of the fashion industry, and to help consumers, I guess, in general, to navigate like greenwashing that's in the industry, but also like how they can do their bit to reduce their impacts and push for change.
Did you expect it to blow up as much as it has done?
Not really. I mean, I did work on it a lot, and I put lots of time and effort into it. So I was kind of hoping that my efforts weren't going to waste and that people would notice what I was doing. But no, I never expected that at that point. And it did kind of scare me at first, and it's still a bit difficult to manage the attention that posts get, because when a post goes viral, like there's a lot of like I feel kind of vulnerable, like my content is being judged and the criticism I might get, and it's so easy on the internet, especially because I don't put my face on it. It doesn't feel like they're attacking a person, but just kind of it's difficult to distance yourself from the content you produce sometimes, but I guess that's part of it, and it also sparks some interesting conversations, so happy about that.
Yeah, I think as well, when you are to some extent exposing yourself, and when you get to a certain standard and people rely on what you're producing quite a lot, when people start giving you feedback on that, you know, it does make you sort of challenge everything that you're saying, and making sure that you're right. So in some ways, I can imagine it works as a positive, but at the same time, you know, people are sometimes just out there to put down what you're doing.
Yeah, it definitely helped me like become more mature as well, because at first, you know, I was putting so much time into researching, creating the post, that I was really attached to my ideas and what I was putting out there, that whenever I got some criticism, or even just people coming from different perspectives that thought, wait, that's not true for everyone, that's not feasible for everyone, I would just feel very attacked. And but then with time, I started to realize, well, it's actually good to get different perspectives and to like question my point of view, and be more open-minded as to where the different starting points. People might have different relationship with their clothes and with consumption in general, and might not be aware. And even like the amount of privilege that it takes for someone to put so much time and effort into changing their consumption habits, and like the choices they might have, and the accessibility of options.
Yeah, because I think as well, when we actually first met you, we were having a conversation about accessibility within fashion, and that's one of the biggest problems. Is fast fashion provides such accessibility for so many people, and sustainable fashion hasn't been able to provide those opportunities unless you are consuming secondhand. But I think one of the main focuses is consuming less, but then unfortunately the fast fashion industry doesn't provide higher enough quality clothing to be able to not buy as much, but then still make it last for as long.
Yeah, I think that also sustainability has kind of not a bad vibe around it, but it's seen as more expensive than fast fashion all the time. No matter if you're thrifting or if you're doing different swap shops, it's still seen as a more privileged thing to do. Whereas fast fashion is easily accessible. Swap shops aren't every day. They're not 24 hours, which some Primarks are and things like that. So it's just different. It's a different world. So.
When you started the page, how did you find the right language, the right tone of voice to engage with people? What did you find like things were working when you spoke? When you were more friendly about these ideas, or you know, when you actually like slammed more down on brands that were doing things that were wrong? Like, how did people react to those kind of
it took some time, because I tried to always create a page that I would like to see, so something that I would follow, that I would interact with and engage with if I had it on my feed. So I tried to make something that could resonate with people like me who obviously love fashion, because sometimes when you talk about sustainability, it can feel like, you know, buy less, and people might think, well, it's boring. I like the variety, and I think the fashion is fun, and I never wanted to portray a message of you know, you have to cut down on the enjoyment that clothing gives you, because it is a fun part of life. But I think what helped me was being honest. Like, I'm not an expert about this. I'm just sharing my journey of what I was learning, what I was discovering. I think simple tips really resonated with people, like ways that they could make change in their daily life, because it can seem like obvious, for example, to wash your clothes at cold temperatures instead of really hot, but actually it isn't. And I think also, especially in the Western world, we're so disconnected from our clothes. We don't know how to repair, we don't really know how to make them last, and that's kind of what brands want. They want us to just buy constantly and not really think about caring for our clothes to make them last longer. So really thinking about how to love our clothes and care for them properly, so that we can get more wear out of them, and like overall that can save us money. So you know, it's a win-win. And also like starting simple, I guess, because it can be overwhelming to tell people you can't buy fast fashion anymore, you can't go into the stores, like that's bad, that makes you a bad person. That's obviously not the angle you want to go at. And I tried not to be judgmental, because I was part of the problem. And you know, it's so easy to just think sustainable fashion is inaccessible. I don't like those clothes, so I'm just going to continue with buying what I'm buying. And I think honesty is really important in terms of I only know where I'm researching. I'm not an expert, and also it's also good to know these things though. So I try to make it simple, make it really simple, digestible, and not put a lot of text into it because people unfortunately have very short attention spans.
Yeah.
So
We've
We've had that, yeah.
yeah. It's little things I learned over time. Just being close to the people as well that I was making the content for, like easily actionable tips. And I think hard facts were really popular though. People could reshare them, tell their friends, and it kind of shocked them. And really, I think you need that sort of impact to change your habits. Otherwise, if you go too soft on people, it's so easy to ignore it or think, it's not a big deal. But when you actually realize the extent of the problem and you communicate that, then it makes people look at the issue in the eye and think, I have to do something. I have to get involved.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point about people not knowing like how to actually care about their clothes, because the amount, even though it's on the label, denim you shouldn't wash. You should never put it in a tumble dryer or wash it above 30 degrees. And the amount of times I've seen people shrink their denim jeans or just completely ruin them when, I put them in the bath in cold water. But that's because I've had the opportunity to work in the industry and understand how these things are best done to make them last as long as possible. But unfortunately, that information isn't so widely accessible for everyone.
But also, some people don't want to use that information, so putting a pair of jeans in a bath is probably not someone's idea of washing a pair of clothes.
Exactly. Not everyone has a bath.
No, exactly. Yeah. And also, another thing on that is that mending your clothes is become such a thing of the past that no one does it anymore. There's no real talent for it. There's no one that really does it or teaches it.
We don't have the skills.
We don't have the skills to teach it, and all of the skills are now moved abroad to the likes of China, Bangladesh, India. And really, we should be bringing those skills back to the UK and using them ourselves, because it's not actually that difficult to repair things, and we should be doing it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to regain that connection with our clothes because it takes so much time, resources, and labor to make a garment that we only pay £5 for. But actually, we don't see the real cost. We don't see the externalities. And if we realized all the impacts that the fashion industry created, I think we would care for our clothes more. So I think the education around that is key, and probably should be taught in schools as well, like how to sew and care for clothes in general. It can save money and just be more sustainable.
Yeah, I think we had in our school we had sewing lessons, but it was
it usually lasts for like a semester, doesn't it? And you have you try. It's part of a technology sort of practice, so you try different technologies, whether it's food tech, textiles, and then you see which one you want to go into the most. But it shouldn't be a skill you learn because you're going to go into the industry. It should be just a life skill, shouldn't it? Same as anything. But something I'm quite interested in and want to see how we can focus on, and this is something that Fergal and I focus quite a lot on at the Future Fashion Fair, is trying to change attitudes into behaviour. So how can we take people who understand sustainability, understand these issues that are surrounding fashion, and someone might tell you that they understand all these problems, but will they actually then turn that into something where they'll change their lifestyle?
The attitude behavior gap, such a big thing. And unfortunately, when it's so accessible to just buy clothes for so cheap, and especially as young people, because we want to fit in, be part of a group, we want to imitate our friend's style, and we lose that originality. But that's what we want at a certain age, where we want the coolest thing, the trendiest thing, which changes constantly. So those, you might care about sustainability, but then in the moment, you might prioritize other things, and often it seems inaccessible, like prices are too high for sustainable fashion, and you might have certain needs, and there's lots of things to consider. But even
one of the issues that have been found within peer-reviewed research is that they're seeing a lot of attitudes changing with Gen Z and millennials. They are pushing these ideas, they're understanding these impacts that they're having, but because of that young people trying to build their way up, build their salaries up, trying to make themselves in a career. They don't have the funds to do so. And one of the biggest problems is price. One of them is obviously style and trend. That driver of fast fashion trends constantly means that they can't adapt or alter their styling choices to be more sustainable.
Yeah, and brand identity as well. We get so attached to brands, and
Exactly.
it's crazy because we're attracted to things that cost a lot of money, which might be made in the same conditions as fast fashion. But we really want that for just for the label, and it seems stupid, but I guess when everyone around you prioritizes those things and really wants that sort of recognition and feeling part of a group and conforming with their style, it's so easy to fall into that and ignore other factors.
True.
Do you think there's sort of similar to what we were suggesting earlier, like do you think there's like a formula to feel how you can communicate where you can get people to going from understanding about these ideas to then actually implementing them?
Yeah, I think what I found is making it easier. So first of all, you don't have to quit fast fashion, and it's not cold turkey. There's no extremes, and also look at the benefits that would bring to your life. You would spend less money, you would develop your own personal style, and sort of move away from that treadmill, which is very exhausting, of always chasing the new thing and feeling like you've achieved that level of recognition when you've got that item that everyone else has and everyone else wants, but then there's the next one that comes out. So it can be very draining to chase that sort of high that fashion gives you, and want to keep you hooked that way. But if you realize actually I could be gaining a lot more time if I didn't shop so often, save money, and develop a relationship to my clothes by really appreciating them and appreciating even my grandma's clothes and whatever like our relatives left us, and maybe sort of trying to remake out of old clothes something new that I like, that fits me, that can make me feel good, and really making it last, appreciating the value of clothes. I think that can really help people realize that the system is not working for anyone, it's not benefiting anyone, and it's also like it's not just about the consumption. That's also what I try to say, like sign a petition, contact a brand, maybe attend a protest, or attend even a swap shop, or talk to your friends about it, talk to your family. Those are all things you can do to bring a change. And so it's not just like, you don't have to be perfect. It's a journey.
Yeah, I think the whole process of just slowing down in general, slowing down from your purchasing habits, for example, you do the page, I'm sure that you sometimes feel like there are too many posts at a time, because I found that many people say that when they're doing one a day, it's just too much content and too little time to prepare. And then they've changed it to only doing it once a week, and their content has just been much, much better. And people have just decided to, they've got more followers from it because it's better content for less time.
Yeah, unfortunately, Instagram doesn't really prioritize that. Like the algorithm wants you to produce so often, which is also why I kind of struggled with, I'm talking about sustainability, but is my life sustainable if I'm like burning out, producing all these posts and trying to keep up that quality? But unfortunately, like this fastness and this rapid turnover of trends is such a huge thing in our society that we kind of need to keep up in every area, and it's difficult because it's the opposite of sustainability. And also that's why I like to talk about sustainable fashion as something that benefits us, because slowing down is what we need in general. It makes us all feel better, and reconnecting to our true self, what we really need.
That's kind of mad that it's actually all these processes, whether it's social media, fashion, they're all trying to increase us, improve or accelerate everything that we do,
even phones and cars.
And if it's making these algorithms are also making you accelerate the amount of information, when actually quality over quantity, isn't it, really? But I think that you're right. I think it's important to help people integrate into ideas first before you kind of just overload them with information like, this is the list of everything you need to do to have a more sustainable lifestyle. But actually, if you just tell them with the resources that are already available to them, and then work at it that way and slowly integrate these people into this kind of new way of understanding things.
It's educating, not shaming, because like shaming people and forcing people into doing something and making them feel guilty for not doing it definitely doesn't work. It pushes people away from the movement.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's something that happens over time. If we're used to a certain way of life, we won't just wake up the next morning and stop it. So yeah, and I think with social media as well, there's so much misinformation, which is like what I'm trying to fight against. Like I try to put more time into like creating my posts and researching for them, but again, like it's a whole it's hard to find the balance between making a lot so I can keep growing and getting more people interested, but at the same time make sure that what I create is well researched, that I ask experts' opinions and I don't put out any fake news out there, because fashion is also well known for having lots of flawed data.
Yeah, definitely. I think something we've also noticed, the myths behind some of the information as well, and also the biased nature of a lot of that information. Who is the original source of that information, and who is funding these kind of projects that are trying to get the information for? Because if it's actually coming from the industry that they're trying to support, then of course it's not going to be accurate information. I think cotton is a prime example of that. You know, when you look at water use in the cotton industry, there's so many different numbers. It goes from 1,000 to 20,000 for a kilogram of cotton, and there's no in between, and that doesn't make any sense. And people are using this information, if it's newspapers or journalists, and there's not the right information there.
But people kind of want that shock factor. That's why like the posts I've done that went the best are the ones where I did put these really shocking statistics. And that's what like the media really wants, is to get people's attention with these facts that often are not true. And you think, well, you know, how can we actually get people interested if what works is kind of wrong, you know, if they get hooked on it from the wrong information. Like, how can research be done well? Because it's so difficult with the fashion industry being so fragmented, supply chains being huge, and like there's no nuance as well. And when we actually need that, like in cotton, the problem really I think is because if the water was from rainwater, then that would be okay. But if it's grown in water stress areas, then that's the issue. Kind of.
I think that's where the measurements have been, isn't it? It's about understanding the blue water and green water, and do we count, which one do we count, how much do we count, and which are the most water scarce areas of the world as well. So it's interesting to see how the cotton industry approaches these things and different measurements. And there are tools out there that are, you know, neutral. They are in a position where they will want to have the right information out there, but you know, with so many different platforms now that are providing information and there's so many certifications that it's so difficult to ensure who's right.
And there's so many. There isn't one certification that ensures they're all perfect. You know, that you have to have so many different ones, and for small brands it's hard because they're expensive.
And a lot of factories just don't want to bother because it's an expense for them. It's not always an expense for the brand, but the factories in China, for example, they just don't like certain certifications because they just know the certifications are just complete bollocks. Some of them just are, and I've seen it from where I work, and you just know, you can see it, that it's nothing. They don't mean anything, which is a real shame, because it's just they're just covering it up.
It's a shame, because what can consumers really trust? You know, what can we really look for? If I think maybe we should look into reshoring some production. Also, that would bring back some important skills, and it would make it easier to monitor and trace the supply chain. Maybe we would make clothes more expensive, but that's also probably good, because they can't be as cheap as a cup of coffee, really.
Well, it's just economies of scale at the end of the day. If we put the prices up here, then the price of wages go up, so everything else will just steadily go up if we bring more jobs into our own country rather than importing everything. I think that's the big difference, is that because we're importing so much, it can be so cheap because we're getting it from cheap labour places.
I think one of the biggest issues as well is this spatial scale switching as well, where if you're taking garments from India and you're using their water supplies where water is already scarce, we're turning it into products and then we're wearing those products. We're taking that resource away from them effectively.
Yeah.
And it's trying to ensure that those costs are implemented in that, because if we're taking their water supplies, how can we implement that in the cost of the product as well? But again, the industry needs to adapt to these kind of things, and these certifications, verification, need to also recognize those as well. With the research you've done as well and what you're doing with your studies, how do you see yourself working into the industry, or how do you see yourself going forward now?
Yeah, I think what I would like to see more is collaboration. That's key. I think within different areas of fashion, I think that's how we got to the problems we got to, because there's no collaboration. It's just the power dynamics are imbalanced, and like only a small percentage is benefiting at the top of companies, and it's not working for anyone else. So I would like to see more collaboration between maybe decision makers and in industry players, like people in fashion, but also people like I try to do, and really coming to sort of an agreement, because it feels like it's a constant fight between like fighting greenwashing, fighting exploitation, but actually we need to reconcile the people who have the resources and the means and that can actually make a change, and people who want to see a different system. We can't just be in conflict with different actors, and like even with suppliers, allowing them to actually develop better technologies that can improve, like reduce their costs, implement more renewable energies in the way they make clothes, and then so instead of like looking for a certification that sort of solves the problem, it's more deeply structured, I think, and that's why we need to look at power dynamics and how things have worked so far, and also people's perceptions, because we think something that costs more is automatically more sustainable, but that's not necessarily it. So a mix between education and change within the industry to realign demand with supply, and instead of like going around the loopholes of trying to satisfy conscious consumers by doing the bare minimum or ticking boxes, actually how can we bring real change that can make the industry more sustainable? Because otherwise no one will be profitable anymore if we keep burning the planet and extracting resources constantly, producing so much, creating waste. It's not working. It needs to change. So
yeah.
So you're saying collaborations with big brands that basically control the industry is the way forward?
I think that has to happen, unfortunately. It seems really difficult, but they obviously need to like question the way that they've profited so far, and it doesn't seem to happen. Like they seem to avoid, especially the overconsumption discussion. But I think since they hold so much power, they need to become part of the solution, and they really need to question their systems and change, because if we have like this ecosystem of tiny little brands that will never be able to compete with these giants, then what change will happen?
True.
Do you think in terms of communicators, for example, like yourself on social media platforms, do you feel like there's a challenge of sort of people working against each other to try and combat ideas of sustainability? Do you think that more so, or do you feel like there needs to be more collaboration on that side?
Absolutely. I mean, social media is a constant conflict. It's people calling each other out. It's exposing people's hypocrisy, and obviously no one's perfect, and you do need to call out when people are doing something wrong or spreading misinformation. But at the same time, we are really bogged down into the details, or what someone's posting, what someone's wearing, when actually the problems are bigger, and we do need collaboration between different decision makers, different actors in the industry and beyond. So I think that we need to work together more, and it's so easy on social media to attack each other, especially behind a screen, but that doesn't solve anything. And if we're all working towards the same goal, we really should come together, and that hasn't happened yet, in my opinion. I think
you're right. I think one of the challenges I've seen on these social media platforms is when people are trying to give out the right information, try and do the right thing, try and educate people on these tools. There are too many people who are trying to see the flaws in these ideas when actually they're just trying to be there to give you the right information.
Yeah, and nobody's perfect as well. Like,
Exactly.
for example, with the whole influencing thing, I don't like to be called an influencer because it's mostly related to like people selling products, and I don't want to do that. But at the same time, if I have to spend so much time making content and researching and stuff, I also would like an income from my page. So it's finding that balance between feeling like people still trust me and don't think I'm co-opting the movement, but also trying to make some money because it's becoming a job basically. Between like not encouraging consumption, but also maybe highlighting small brands or people doing great things while still like remaining true to my message of like rejecting overconsumption and buying less and all that.
Yeah. So how would that work? So I assume the people you would want to trying to work with to help you do this, would you pick out like key brands or key partners who you believe in the same ethos as you?
Yeah, it's been difficult because I think around 80% of the collaboration proposals I have to reject because I think it would really tarnish my reputation. And I even got a request from Boohoo wanting to collaborate with me. And obviously, at least I think that was impactful because I got to reply to them. So hopefully the message got to the company that, you know, me and other people in this sector really stand for the exact opposite of what kind of they're trying to do. And they are trying to get into this sustainability message, but really that they're so far from it that it would be hypocritical of me to support the effort that they're putting into it. But the way I'm trying to do it is support especially like resale platforms or apps like New, their swapping app, or app like the Hazard just recently launched a Uni of Leeds. It's a student marketplace where we can buy and sell things, and it's more trustworthy because you've got your student email and so it's not like a marketplace where you could be in contact with anyone trying to sell you anything. And it's there's lots of small startups that are trying to grow, and I do like to support them. They often don't have the budget that obviously a Boohoo would have, but I'd rather support those small companies that are not really promoting overconsumption, but actually maybe trying to solve the problem and encouraging more sharing. Like the sharing economy, I think, has so much potential, and people are leaning more towards it, renting, secondhand, swapping, and also it's what the world we need really is, as I was saying, collaborating more, and the seeing clothes as something that we value and we're willing to pass on and give a new life to, and it's just more exciting that way. We can have that variety while not really hurting the planet.
Yeah, I find that interesting though that that these bigger brands are approaching you and trying to collaborate with you. With to some degree, it's good because they are trying to tap into this this field of sort of sustainable influencers, I guess. But at the same time, are they going the right way about it? Are they just trying to cut the corners perhaps and think, oh, maybe this is our way into this kind of industry, when actually a lot of the issues are, you know, in the supply chain.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's better to focus on that side and then come to these guys like saying we have the product, we want to show it to you, we want to share it with you, and then that's when maybe there won't be that rejection from these people.
Definitely look inwards first, and that's something I have not seen often from these fashion brands. They avoid the discussion around overconsumption and the materials they use and the workers they employ. It doesn't make sense, and people see right through that, and I'm glad people are starting to realize that, because like so many companies are really part of the problem. Even like petroleum companies, they can't avoid the problem anymore. They can't really ignore it, so they have to be part of the solution now. But it just happens so quickly that sustainability has almost become a marketing ploy rather than an actual a structural part of the business that they implement all throughout it. And it's not being implemented as a holistic thing. It's more like it seems like ticking boxes and doing the bare minimum again, because it kind of goes in conflict with the whole idea of fast fashion. So they would have to revolutionize the model, I think. So that's why it takes a bit more time. I can't just like clap because you're using 50% recycled materials now. You know, it's a work in progress, and you know, it will need more effort from these brands that can afford it. So.
Yeah, True. And Boohoo certainly can afford it.
And so going forward, I know you've kind of touched on a lot of those ideas of what we need to do. We need to collaborate, absolutely. I think from my understanding, it's very much a push and pull thing. So we need to see it more from the consumer side. We need to drive change, because this is what actually drives NGOs and also legislation. It comes from the consumer side, but at the same time, it needs to come from the brands, because they're the ones, and along the supply chain, they are the ones who know what impact they're having, because they can now get the data to prove it. So I think obviously it's so refreshing to have someone on who is pushing it on that consumer side. Me and Fergal also try to do this through the consumer side as well. And I think going forward, it's so important that everyone starts to understand the true important issues that are surrounding fashion.
Yeah. It's so important that consumers really try their best, because with governments, change happens so slowly, and it takes so much more time for laws to be implemented. And companies do need an incentive to change, because things are working for them. So they do need an external pressure, a strong pressure from governments and consumers to change. But I think individuals can make a lot of change. And I always say it really depends on the amount of privilege you have. If you have an education, if you have more time maybe to go charity shopping instead of just go to Primark, or if you even have the accessibility of that, because for example in Italy there's no charity shops. We only have I'm Italian for context. We only have vintage shops that have these really high-end designer products that obviously cannot be an alternative to fast fashion. They're just these very luxurious products that are also very expensive, even though it's secondhand. So you have Depop Vinted, but I think it's not the same in every part of the world, and we need to realize that. We need to make the opportunities equal for everyone to be able to move away from this system. Otherwise, it's too easy to blame it on people, but if they don't have the alternative, then obviously they're going to support that. And this concept of always, I've heard that a lot, but what about the garment workers if I don't buy fast fashion anymore? And unfortunately, it's obviously not going to happen overnight. So it's not like garment workers are going to lose their job. And also, would you want those jobs? Even though they are jobs, yes, they are getting paid, but they're not dignified jobs. So I think it's also important not just buying, because we're not just consumers, we're citizens, and we need to support NGOs that are fighting for garment workers' rights, and asking companies to give better jobs, not to shift production, which is kind of what Boohoo has done when the whole scandal of the £3 an hour happened. They've just moved production elsewhere, but that's not the solution. That's not what we want. Obviously, people don't need those jobs, but you can afford to pay them more and give them a dignified job that gives them security. So it's all about the nuance of things. It's not black and white. It's not like fast fashion is bad. Fast fashion has supported people, giving them jobs, but obviously, we need to push for better jobs. So it's not just through consumption, and that's what social media comes in as well. Petitions and like sending an email to brand. If we all do it, that the really quantity matters in that case.
Yeah, and on the other side of that, it's not just the garment workers that are getting paid so little. It's also about the impoverished in this country that can afford to buy cheap clothes, and fast fashion it's not obviously a good thing, but it's a good thing for them because they can then afford the clothes that they can buy. So both ends of the scale, if you take fast fashion away, it means that the people here that can't afford to buy luxury and more expensive clothing, they get a whole industry taken away for them, and the garment workers then also get their jobs taken away. So it's kind of, you can't live without fast fashion. It's become a thing, and we just need to manage it better.
Yeah, improve it.
Yeah, improve it and then start paying people more, especially like you talk about Boohoo moving their production from Leicester away. I would say that they should really take on that and say, okay, it was us, we'll help fix that. Yeah. Fix the problem, instead of just going, no, it wasn't us, what are you talking about? And moving away from it. I think they should be taking this upon themselves to then change, because I think that looks better. than running away.
Yeah, but there is a lack of accountability. And I think because the industry has been unregulated for so long that they can just run away and hide. And like the industry has been built on secrecy, unfortunately. And so it will take a while to change. But yeah, it's important to see the nuance in these conversations as sometimes missing, especially because in an Instagram post, it's only 10 slides. It's so hard to have that, which is also what I struggle with. I want to push a sort of an idea, but then there's always people criticizing because it's hard to condense that idea in that little space.
Yeah. Especially when people don't usually read 10 slides. They'll get to 4 or 5 and think, I'll move on.
Ignore the caption and
and then they really do criticize because they've not read the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So going forward with Sustainably, where do you see it going? Are you going to keep going with it? Is there any changes you're going to make with it, or any improvements you're going to make? Or?
Yeah, hopefully finding someone that can help me create content, and also maybe touching on some issues that I can't know fully. For example, like the real impacts that happen all throughout the supply chain. I would love to connect to people in different parts of the world that are actually facing the real problems in their areas. For example, I've done that with the secondhand economy. I've got in touch with the Awear Foundation that's trying to fix this problem. Not really fix, but bring a light to this, bring awareness to this issue of kind of waste colonialism, really, and kind of giving a voice to these people that are fighting, like they're actually fighting these things in their daily life, because I can talk about them, and I can offer my platform to these people that are doing great work that's often not seen, and from the comfort of my home I'm not making the change I would like to make. So I think really delegating the message to people who can say it more and actually like truthfully explain what happened, and I would like that very much, and hopefully people will appreciate that. But yeah, maybe kind of taking a step back myself, but really passing the mic on, maybe. I think that's very important, because it's such a huge issue that it's so hard, even with the internet, with the access to information, it's hard if you haven't experienced it firsthand. So yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up, but it's been so great having you on.
Yeah, thank you
very
amazing.
Much.
Thank you.
So yeah, if people listening or watching would like to follow, it's Sustainably with double S